Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we are going to be talking about the final Playday in Europe for the group stage of stage number 2 of 2023. Only 4 matches to talk about today, and before we get into those, let me implore you to like and subscribe. I've been getting a good number of views recently, but maybe not as many likes as I'd like, so feel free to like the video. It only takes a split second. Same thing for subscribing if you want it to be easier for you to see more of these videos in the future. I very much appreciate it. The first game of the day was Wild versus Team Secret. As far as the stakes for this game went, a slight correction from what I said in the previous EUL video. The winner of this matchup would secure their spot in top 3 of their group unless Team Secret lost in round 15, then they would still secure the top 3 spot. And of course, the top 3 teams from each group get to play in the playoffs, or their chances at 3 major qualification spots. Whereas the bottom 2 teams from each group would have to go directly to the LCQ to fight for just 1 spot at the major. Wild concluded the first Playday with a 7-0 over Koi, and they kick off the final Playday with a 7-0 over Secret. Wild was definitely the most volatile team this stage. They 7-0'd 2 other teams, were 7-0'd themselves, and in their other result, they lost in round 15, putting them on a 2-2 record in terms of wins and losses. The map was border, and in terms of the individual rounds, not a whole lot to talk about. No player got anything better than a 3K in any given round, and there was only a single clutch in the game by Pack Bull. And speaking of Pack Bull, 9-1 on KD, 1-0 on entry, 100% cost, and a 1vx. This guy's been pretty great this stage. Jags was another pop-off player in this match, going 10-1 top frag in the lobby, and Aces did pretty well for himself as well. And as you'd expect from a 7-0, nothing impressive over on the side of Team Secret, every player going -2 or worse on KD, and the team only won 2 of the 7 entry engagements. Game number 2 for the day, the other game with playoff qualification implications, was G2 versus M&M. In this game, M&M needed a regulation victory or else it would be G2 in a top 3 position. And they did just that. M&M win the game 7-4 on Skyscraper. And really, it was a pretty hard fallout for G2. After the first week, they had the most points not only in their group but in the entire league, and then they didn't get another point in their remaining 2 games. Yet another excellent game from Virtue, going 10-6. He was pretty phenomenal this stage. Unfortunately, it was not good enough for his team to secure top 3 in the group, but they can still go through the LCQ. We'll have to see if they can make that run. And I kind of also have to mention Benja. Brutal stage from him and a brutal game from him here. He went 1-9, getting a single kill in round number 2, and then not another one for the rest of the game. Also went 0-4 on entry. And on the other hand, pretty much all sunshine and rainbows for M&M. 3 of their players went dead even on KD, and 2 of them went +4 on KD. Those 2 being Nafe and Uzis. Another game where Nafe is top of the board for M&M. It's been a great stage for him thus far. And now in these final 2 games, there weren't any implications as far as teams making top 3 or not. Everybody in these games were either locked into top 3 or locked out of top 3. But both of these games would determine which team would end up as the number 1 team in each group, which is actually pretty big because it advances you directly to the second round of the playoffs. Which means that if you win your first best of 3 in the playoffs, you get to go to stage number 2 of the major. And even if you lose that first best of 3, if you win the next one, you get to go to stage number 1 of the major. So for the penultimate game of the group stage, we have a French-on-French battle, BDS versus Wolves. The historical head-to-head for these 2 teams is very much in the favor of BDS, but Wolves did have a bit of a leg up here in terms of being able to secure first place. All they had to do was win 5 or more rounds. If they did that, regardless of if it was a win or a loss for them, they would still secure first. BDS starts the game off hot, winning 3 rounds in a row, but then Wolves battle back with 3 rounds of their own, and then they trade rounds, putting the game at 4-4. And so at this point, Wolves just need to win a single round and they'll secure first place in their group, but they're not able to do it 3 rounds in a row for BDS, and by the skin of their teeth, they take first place, as well as the game. And wouldn't you know it, it was another monster stage and another monster game from Shaiko, 12-5 on KD, 3-0 on entry. And actually every player on BDS goes positive in terms of kills, and even Alems and Renshiro got in on the action, with Alems going +2 on KD and entry, and Renshiro going +1 on both KD and entry. Over on Wolves, not really a pretty sight, every player going negative on KD and every player going even or worse on entry. And so here we are with the final game of the group stage, Virtus Pro versus Koi. This was definitely the lowest stakes game of the day, with Koi playing for nothing but their pride. That's not to say that it had no real stakes. Depending on the result of this game, Virtus Pro could still place anywhere from 1st to 3rd in their group. If they lost either 7-0 or 7-1, they'd end up in 3rd place, and they needed to win at least 5 rounds to secure 1st place. If they'd lost 2-7, 3-7, or 4-7, they would have ended the stage in 2nd place in their group. And anything but a dominant victory for Virtus Pro here felt pretty unlikely coming into the game. Not only were they going up against a winless Koi, but they were also getting to play on what is probably their best map in Clubhouse. But when the game began, things were not as they originally seemed. In their defensive half, Koi went up 5-1, and then they even won their first attack, putting them onto 6-1. So at this point, Virtus.pro ending up in 3rd place in their group was very much on the table. If they lost the next round, that's exactly what would happen. And even if they did win that next round, they would have had to string together another 3 rounds in a row to make sure that they did secure the 1st place in the group. And what actually ended up happening was they won the next 7 rounds in a row, winning the map 8-6 and taking the top spot in the group. A very impressive comeback by Virtus.pro, and unfortunately for Koi, this means that they end the group stage winless. Solid showings from Hosty and Leon Gids over on Koi, both going 11-10 on KD, both going 3-1 on entry. And over on Virtus.pro, Pasha really popped off, going 17-8 on KD, 1-0 on entry. He had a 1vx and he got 2 plants off. And notably, Dan, not too hot on a map that he's generally excellent on. He wasn't the worst performer on the team, that was Shepard at 3-9, but Dan still went 8-9 on KD, 2-4 on entry. Today, instead of just mentioning the top players in the league, I want to go down the line with the teams and mention players that were notable because they either did very well or very poorly. For Virtus.pro, Pasha was the best player, flawless 4-0 entry with 4 plants as well. No major bright spots on Koi, but at least the imported Jigsaw had a decent debut in EUL, going positive on kills. But Cryan with a brutal stage here, tying as the lowest rated player in the league if you don't count Anarchic, who only subbed in for 2 games. Shaiko impressive as almost always, over a 2.0 KD and a 1.23 KPR. Leakafak and Brede were also quite good. Shinka finishes as the best player for Wolves, going +4 on KD with 3 1vx's and 6 plants. Virtue was phenomenal for G2 every game, going +20 on KD with 3 1vx's. And on the flip side of things, Benja with a pretty tough stage, going -14. This is a guy that you kind of need and expect to get a lot of frags. Nave had a great stage on M&M, going +6 on KD, +4 on entry, and Usus also went +6 on KD and +4 on entry. Aces, Jegs, and Packbull were all pretty good on Wild. Even Teb, who wasn't phenomenal, had a solid 6-2 entry scoreline. And Hungry actually ends the stage as the only player in the league without a single entry engagement. On Secret, Groovy, Miracle, and to a slightly lesser extent, Savage were the big 3 players the entire stage. Falls, and especially Uber, really struggled, with Uber being the other player to tie as the lowest rated player in the league if you disregard Anarchic. On Heroic, Astro and June were okay, with Astro being the only player to not go negative on entry and June being the only player to not go negative on KD. And for Into the Breach, Kanto and Noah were quite good, Azur and Kendrew were decent, and Yonka kind of struggled, but you do expect that from him given the roles that he plays. Really quickly, I'll mention the map stats. Skyscraper was actually the most played map in EU at 4 plays, and we only saw a single play for Oregon and Nighthaven Labs. The only attacker-sided maps were Bank, Cafe, and Chalet. Consulate was dead even, and each other map was quite defender-sided. And so at the end of things, the standings are as such. In Group A, we have Virtus.pro, Wild, Into the Breach, Team Secret, and Koi. And in Group B, we have BDS, Wolves, M&M, G2, and Heroic. And at the end here, I guess I'll just mention what the playoff matchups are. M&M will play against Wild. The winner of that will play against BDS for a spot at the major in stage number 2. Wolves will play against Into the Breach. The winner of that will play against Virtus.pro, also for a spot in stage number 2 of the major. And then both of those teams that qualified for stage number 2 of the major will play against each other to see who will be the 1st and 2nd seeds. And the losers of those qualification matches will still play each other. The winner of that will go to stage number 1 of the major. The loser will go to the LCQ, along with the 2 teams that lost in the very first round of these playoffs. And I'll just mention this here for anyone that's still watching. I'm not going to cover the playoffs until they're completely done, so just keep that in mind. Don't expect any videos for each round of the playoffs or anything like that. And same thing for the LCQ. Once that's all complete, I'll have a video on that and we'll see which team made the major from the LCQ. And I think that's it. So comment below which teams you want to make it to the major from Europe, and I will catch you guys next time.